Great. Wherever you guys want to start as far as...
We'll probably start with the what we call the stone home. In 1849, my grandmother's grandfather built a house on Queen City Avenue and probably also built the church and the other stone houses around it and the school building with the priests' residence above the school building. And those three houses remain and are on the National Register of Historic Places. The house at 2145 Queen City has been in our family since the 1849. And so that, and it's changed hands usually at or near the death of somebody. It is given to another member of the family. And currently, Maribeth, my sister's son Andrew, owns the house now. Okay.
So there were German immigrants coming in the 1840s, and Nicholas Schwab was one of them. And so Lick Run was also known as St. Petersburg, and there were a number of, they were German Catholic families that settled there. And evidently he was Catholic, which we just found out recently at a family reunion in the last several years. But he and his wife, Margaret Longfritz Schwab, raised 10 children. And our great-grandmother was like one of the last of their 10 grandchildren. And by that time that she was brought up, they were Protestant. So we have a heritage of both in our family. And so the German Catholic congregation of Lick Run Road began in 1843, and they were holding services in the home of John and Maria Weber, and that couple sold it to this church. And it was St. Petersburg German Catholic congregation, and they later became St. Bonaventure, which was down the street on Queen City. It's no longer there, but it was a beautiful big church, and we do have some pictures of that. And like Chris said, the family story is that Nicholas Schwab built that church and the building between the stone home and the little church was where the priest lived and the school was. And they had what we found out, about 60 children at that school. And it's not a very big school, but that's what they said that they had. And it's said that Nicholas Schwab looked like Abraham Lincoln, only he was a lot shorter. And there was, all the while we grew up, our grandparents had a picture of Abraham Lincoln in the dining room. And
so the progression was that the youngest daughter of Nicholas Schwab, our great-grandmother, and her
Elizabeth.
And they spelled Elizabeth with an S for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But Elizabeth married John Schafer, and then they had 3 children. My grandmother, Christine Elizabeth Schafer.
No, Christine Margaret.
Christine Margaret. And so then the other 2 boys sold their ownership in the house out to my grandmother. Her first husband died in 1918. They had 1 child, Christine Elizabeth Schobert. Mm-hmm. And then she married Rudolph Gump, and he was from the family that lived across the street. And so they had 3 children, and our mother was the middle of those 3 children. And when my grandfather died, she inherited the house, and then she died last March. And before she died, she transferred the house to Andrew Harvey,
One of her
many
grandchildren.
Many grandchildren, yes. So, and that's the progression of the house and how it came to be in our family. Now, the whole time I was growing up, my grandfather always said that the city wanted to straighten out Queen City Avenue. Mm-hmm. And they, I guess it was the late 1988. Okay, in 1988, there was a plan that would have taken the house, the church, and the school priest residence. And so we kind of launched a campaign with city council to try to get them to change the configuration of the road. And we were successful in doing that. There were a lot of letters written. We went to a city council meeting, and there's some articles about that in the material we brought. And so after that happened, well, Maribeth can talk about having it put on the National Register of Historic Places.
There used to be a historical organization that Chris recommended called the Miami Purchase Miami Purchase what was it?
Well,
Miami Purchase Association, anyway. Might have been Preservation Association. And Mary Ann Brown was the director of it, and she kind of told us what we needed to find to prove that all these stories that had been handed down to us were correct, that Nicholas Schwab had indeed built a stone home, and that it had been in 1849, which is what we believed. And so finding him on the census in 1850 was a triumphant moment, and we just kind of followed some guidelines that Mary Ann Brown gave us, and we filled out the application. And our mother, who owned the house at that time, Ruth Schafer, she received notice that it had been put on the historic register. And then that didn't guarantee that the city was going to change their plans, but they did, thankfully. So it's still there, and it's a precious thing. It's very old, but it's a precious thing to our whole family to have that home there. And there's a stair from the dining room into the kitchen that's all worn. It's like a log that went across there, and it's all worn down and smooth, and it's kind of famous, like we would never replace that, because it's just worn the time of all our family stepping on it in all these years.
And the other thing that we were able to find is went through the records in the deed where Nicholas Schwab bought the land, and we traced that all the way through to the present.
From John and Mary.
And he bought it from John and Mary Horn, and it was part of a larger piece of property. And I guess the total acreage of the piece he bought is about a little over 3 acres, I believe.
It was.
Yeah, and then it got reduced because they put the C&O Railroad through the property and took a portion of the upper part of it. Around the turn of the century, 1901, 1902, I'm told, the city put in the combined sewer of sanitary and stormwater through the property, and that got rid of Lick Run Creek. And that created a demographic change, according to my grandmother. She said that most of the Italians were brought in to do the brickwork and lay the brick because that sewer was a brick sewer. And they liked the area, and many stayed. And so you had a large Italian influence there. The most notable, I guess, is Buddy La Rosa, who started La Rosa's, but some people might remember Pasquale's. And Pasquale's Pizza was started by Pasquale Gramaglia, who lived in the house that was the school and the priest's home right next door. So the Gramaglias started the other pizza chain that was in town for many years. And so that, and then they built a Italian Catholic church down the street called
San Antonio.
San Antonio's church, and it's still in operation. Most of the Germans went to St. Bonaventure, and it was torn down a number of years ago. I think the steps might still be there, and there's a charter school located on that site now.
And then the two Protestant churches were Emmanuel and Martini Church, which is the one that our family eventually ended up in. Our grandmother told us that she switched from Emmanuel to go to Martini, which is up on the hill, and the building is still there, because it was closer when she had her children to walk to from the Stone Home. But Reverend Kohler was minister there, I think, for 40-some years, and my husband can tell you more about the church because he grew up in that church. He lived in North Fairmount, and we have some pictures of Reverend Kohler and some news articles about him. And I don't know, what else?
So let's we can end the interview now. Okay, we're talking.